The billboard outside my apartment window had been blank for months, but on Tuesday, a single poster appeared. It read, "Sleep study volunteers wanted. $5,000 for 4 nights." Being a broke college student in Chicago, I didn't care about the strange address or the fact that the facility was located in an abandoned industrial district. I called the number immediately. A woman with a voice as cold as ice answered, gave me an appointment for midnight, and told me to bring nothing but the clothes on my back. When I arrived, the building looked completely dead. The paint was peeling, and the only light came from a single flickering bulb above a heavy iron door. The door buzzed open before I could even knock. Inside, the air smelled heavily of bleach and old copper. A receptionist sat behind a bulletproof glass window. She didn't look up from her paperwork, but her fingers were moving with unnatural speed, typing on a keyboard that wasn't plugged into anything. "Name?" she whispered, her voice echoing in the empty lobby. I stammered my name, and without a word, she handed me a silver key with the number 309 stamped into it. As I walked toward the elevator, I looked back. The receptionist had stopped typing. She was staring directly at me, her eyes completely black, smiling a smile that was far too wide for a human face. Room 309 was small, sterile, and freezing cold. The walls were covered in padded white leather, stained with yellow marks that looked suspiciously like old sweat or blood. In the center of the room stood a single metal bed frame with thick leather restraints attached to the corners. Above the bed, a massive, rusted, metallic camera lens stared down at me like an unblinking eye. A speaker crackled to life from the ceiling. "Welcome, subject. You'll please lie down and secure the straps. The trial begins now." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to run, but the thought of the money made me lie down. I buckled my own arms and legs into the cold leather. The lights went out instantly, plunging the room into absolute darkness. Hours passed and I couldn't sleep. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of my own heartbeat. Then, around 3 a.m., the temperature dropped until I could see my own breath. I heard a soft scratching sound coming from underneath my bed. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It sounded like long fingernails scraping against the metal frame. I tried to lift my head, but the restraints held me tight. Suddenly, the scratching stopped, and I felt a heavy, freezing pressure press down on my chest. Something was sitting on me, breathing wet, rotten air directly into my face. I screamed, but no sound came out of my throat. The creature whispered in a language that sounded like grinding teeth, then slid back into the shadows. The next morning, the door clicked open. A man in a stained white lab coat walked in to check my vitals. His skin looked like plastic, and he didn't blink once. When he leaned over me, his collar parted slightly. My heart stopped. Beneath his lab coat, his neck was covered in heavy black surgical stitches, as if his head had been sewn onto a completely different body. I looked at his chart on the wall. It wasn't a medical file, it was a list of names, and every single name before mine had the word "harvested" stamped across it in red ink. Panic exploded inside me. As soon as the doctor turned his back to grab a syringe filled with a thick black liquid, I used every ounce of my strength. I ripped my left hand out of the worn leather strap, tearing my skin in the process. I grabbed the heavy metal nightstand lamp and smashed it directly into the back of his head. There was no blood, just a sickening sound of breaking plastic and whirring gears. The doctor stumbled, his head tilting at an impossible 90-degree angle, but he didn't fall. He turned around, his jaw unhinging as he let out a high-pitched mechanical shriek. I jumped off the bed and ran out into the dim hallway as red alarm lights began to flash. I don't remember how I broke through the fire exit or how I ran all the way back to my apartment. I locked my door, pushed my heavy dresser against it, and collapsed onto my bed, sobbing with relief. I was safe. It was over. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from my bank. A deposit of $5,000 had just cleared. A second later, a text message arrived from an unknown number. I opened it, my hands shaking. It was a live video feed of me sitting in my own room, taken from a camera angle directly above my head. The text read, "Phase 2 of the sleep study has successfully begun. Do not close your eyes.